welcome to the Retail Podcast. Jay Topper, who we'll talk to in 1 second, Chief Customer Officer at Fabric. Jay, for those who don't know Fabric or don't know yourself, if you don't mind just giving us maybe a career background and then tell us a recap on what Fabric does.
Sure. And Alex, thank you for having me as well. I've been super looking forward to this. I've listened to many of your podcasts, so thank you. My career, I started out in the United States military. So I served in our Army and our Coast Guard up and through about 1997. And then from 1997 to 2024, I primarily worked for retailers, Rosetta Stone, Kroger, FTD, the flour company, and most recently Chico's FAS, in a variety of roles from CIO to CTO to COO to Chief Digital Officer, most recently as my last 2 tours of duty. I put Fabric in when I was at Chico's FAS. I was a super early adopter, and it was a partnership because the heartbeat of the entire suite of products there is the OMS, the order management system. And we partnered together to breathe life into something that would serve a multi-billion-dollar, multi-channel, omni-channel retailer that had a lot of complexities, but that the rest of the market would embrace. And it was wildly successful. We were bought by Sycamore Partners. We went from public to private, and I exited the company along with our other C-levels. I contracted for Fabric for 2 or 3 months. I did some blogs and some content, and I've always fallen in love with the product from both experience and spending years with them. And then, so now I work as a Chief Customer Officer. And in short, Fabric is an e-commerce platform. It's a composable, headless. It checks those boxes. I think what makes it uniquely special from my standpoint is a few things. Number one is it was built from the ground up as composable and cloud native, and it's very empowering to the end users. So in the retail industry, time is super precious. Margins are sometimes tight. So the faster you can speed up and the smarter you can speed up the experience of the end users to then serve their customers, the better. While certainly it has the checkout and price and promotion, drop ship, and I think the 2 flagship products are the product catalog and the order management system, which a lot of people start with and then go on to put the other aspects of the platform in place. It can be a very incremental approach.
So what's keeping everyone awake right now? When you're meeting new or prospective or your existing customers, what's top of mind right now in your world?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a couple things that come to mind. And again, I speak from someone who was in the buyer's chair for 27 years and have a lot of peers and friends in the industry. And so I leapt from one to the next. And it's that empathy that drives me. And I think there's a few things. One is it's a bit of an unknown market right now. And when we head into Q4, especially, and with the election, and yes, COVID's behind us, but there's been a little bit of instability even since then with inflation and all these other macro things. People are hunkered down a little bit. And so that leads to really helping customers understand why, what problem are they trying to solve, and then how, because a lot of companies are stuck in legacy monoliths or sometimes even composable platforms that require an incredible amount of technology to manage. And whatever their situation might be in, it could be anything from TCO to omni-channel. I'm a freak when it comes to what omni-channel really is and what it really means. They're trying to get out of some sort of box, and the how becomes super complicated. Like, how can I replace this big thing with these little things that add up without putting huge risk to my business? And I think there's pent up demand, actually, and people want to be shown the way. I get more involved in how to architect the story to their executives or their boards or their CEOs, which is what I've done my entire career. And then lastly, they want empathetic partners, because I'm not a salesperson. I'm never going to be a salesperson. I'm 63 and that ship has long sailed, but I can empathize with people because I've sat in all their chairs and I've replaced 100 platforms in my career. I actually counted them not too long ago. You have to first figure out why, and is there actually a problem to solve? And then you have to figure out the how, and then you have to articulate it. And then it gets to execution, which is a whole nother can of worms. That's the most exciting part to me of a replatform.
So in terms of the things that you've mentioned, omni-channel obviously is one element. Cost is another element. What am I missing in terms of the things that are top of mind for your customers right now?
I think omni-channel cost, and I think is companies are getting more myopic on what it's like, you have revenue and EBITDA, and then under that you have conversion, traffic, and AOV and gross margin, and then down below that the things that feed that. I think the concept of outcome-based technology investments, which people have always talked about, but is becoming a lot more ingrained. So I think business performance along with cost and omni-channel are real keys. So they have to see the tie. There's only so much discretionary spend a company can make. Infrastructure costs are often non-ROI, so that makes the pool even smaller. And so every dollar that you spend there, you want to spend it where you're going to get the most return. So that outcome-based implementations are much more. We're much more focused now on outcomes and metrics than we ever have been before.
I got you. And are most of your customers, like, is it on-site, off-site? Is it in the cloud, or is it a mix in terms of where their infrastructure sits?
It's a mix, actually. I think sometimes they're cloud-based monoliths. There are still a lot of homegrown systems out there. In fact, many of the customers I speak to, I think 10 years ago, I built my own e-commerce platform a couple companies ago because there really wasn't a microservice-based modular one that was prime time yet. And I think at this point in time, I don't want to use the word commodity necessarily, but the e-commerce platform itself is the way it's getting priced, the way it's getting implemented has become a little bit more commoditized than it has been in the past. And I think we're seeing that. And so I think you're going to see pricing eventually become a little bit more commoditized. And then it gets down to, all right, what's the difference in how you're going to impact my end users and my customers?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and let me ask you the tough question that a lot, obviously, again, I'm sure you've had this question a few times, but, when I'm looking at who I'm going to be placing my business with, because you are running the heart of the business, right? For a lot of commerce, the e-commerce engine is the growth engine. What do you think makes Fabric special or unique in that sense? Obviously, the headless element I got, the flexibility, it's composable, but what's your opinion? What's the thing? Why do you win? What's the reasons you win?
Yeah, I mean, we did win. We had remarkable results putting Fabric in end-to-end, and we actually ran it head-to-head against the legacy platform over peak at the direction of our chief financial officer because he wanted proof. And so during the busiest season, we actually run a split. And I think there's a couple things. Number one is it was definitely built from a cloud native composable standpoint. So there's a lot of companies that are trying to move to microservices from monolith. I've been there, done that. It is incredibly hard. So it's native. So you get all the things like active, where if one goes down, immediately another picks up. You get the auto scaling over peak. You don't have to add more servers. You get all that stuff. I think two things make Fabric unique and why I picked them and why I now work for them. One is the power to the end user. So if you're a site merchant and you need to make regular sites, pricing updates, product updates to your site, price, product, promotion, presentation, you're dialing those things every day during peak. Sometimes 4 and 5 war rooms a day where you have to make changes. You can't go to development to ask for changes. You need to have that power at your fingertips, and eventually AI giving you recommendations of what to do. So you don't have to go run a report first and then come back and then move those dials. So you have the power with the end user. So that's always top of mind for us because they're serving their customers. So we not only have to be empathetic to them, but also to what they're trying to do for their customers, which we're a step removed from. And then the second thing is we listen, and they listen to me as a customer. And it's bringing that empathy to the table where a lot of our customers that are super smart and the problems they're trying to solve, sometimes they're the same problems we're trying to solve. So there's a lot of co-innovation and co-design that takes place. So we really harness our customers well to help advance our product. We do almost not, the voice of the customer is very strong inside of our company. And companies lose that over time. And we're still relatively small. We play big, but we're 5 years old, and I'm fiercely protective of keeping that culture as we grow.
Well, what's in terms of going back to omni-channel, one of the things I'm traveling the world and going to these conferences, some of the executives at retailers, I hear them talk about their frustrations with digital touch points expanding and conversion expanding. Whereas in the past, maybe if you were lucky, you would get a customer at 7 digital touch points and then they would convert. So conversion used to happen a lot faster. And again, this is more of a question than a statement. I'm just curious, have you seen that too in terms of, is conversion taking longer? And if it is, again, what are some of the things from your perspective that you could sort of bake into your e-commerce strategy that could help with basically converting customers, I presume, off the plethora of platforms in social and the multitude of digital touch points that exist out there?
Yeah, first I'll just ground, of what omni-channel is to me. And so omni-channel is to me is it's bringing the promise of the brand and the consistency of that promise of the brand at every single step in the process, whether it's physical or digital. And there's huge opportunities to bring digital into the physical, into the store, amazing things that can happen there, and bringing the physical to the digital, like in clienteling. And so from my standpoint, it's not so much, there are more touches, but I think the art and the science is in understanding the impact of one touch to another. And that can be complex because it's multi-touch attribution, a lot of times you have marketing, finance, and data are presenting different ways to measure the effect of marketing spend, because marketing spend is the hugest variable cost above the line that there is. You can dial it up and down all day long. So the more accurate you can understand the impact of that, not just to your site, but people that are going into the store and people that go to stores that are then going to the site, because the vast majority of multi-channel customers start in the store and then go online second. They don't start online and go into the store. So figuring out a model, it can be simple, that can measure that all three of those groups agree on, marketing, finance, and technology. So you can start to get a baseline of the impact of those different channels, lets you then invest more smartly in the ones that are driving the most downstream ramifications. For example, social may impact email, but PLAs may be the thing that actually drives more people into the store, or whatever the formula happens to be. So you have to measure them, and you can't get caught up too far, because the data people will get too in the weeds. The marketing people want to validate their spend, and the finance people just want to see results. So if you can come together on a super simple model, then you can start to dial that variable marketing a little more efficiently than in the past. And I think that's absolutely critical. I'm a big fan of optimizing variable marketing.
You mentioned data in terms of the data teams. Do you have a preference in which data platforms you work with or play with, or are you agnostic to that? How does the platform manage?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit jaded in this regard. So where I've built and bought a lot of things in my career, I'm not a hands-on technologist, so I'm unemotional about it. Sure. Most of the successes I've had, a lot of the things, like when you think about a customer data platform, building that ourselves and then layering tools that are third-party tools on top of that was, generally speaking, the smart way to go. So for the last three assignments, I was a big fan of GCP, putting my data in there, and then layering some other tools on top of that to help with the segmentation, the audience building, the MTA analysis, things like that to help drive it. But there's a lot of products out there, but you have to be careful, because they're also, all products, they all have their own P&Ls. They're all trying to drive their businesses, and getting what they're doing in line with what you're trying to do and being confident that that's going to march down a certain way over the next 2 or 3 years is critical. Because if they start to diverge, then you start to lose that power. And data, to me, is like the last bastion of what is absolutely special to an organization. So where I would buy almost everything else around that, I like to fiercely protect and own as much as reasonable as I can of that part of the ecosystem.
What's your spidey sense telling you in terms of the future of e-com and where the market is going?
Yeah, I think there's two things, and I'll save the obvious one for second. So when I think of stores, this is very anecdotal, but it'll put a highlight on it. If you think about a website first, you come into a website and you know exactly where a person is on that website. You know when they went into the cart, you know if they left the cart, you know how many images they looked at, you know if they bought. The way the cameras are set up in stores now, there's no reason why you can't have that same instantaneous type of reporting in a store. You know what clothes they went and looked at. You know when they went in the back room to try something on. You know when you're in line, how long they stayed in line. Did they leave the store without buying? So bringing that digital mindset into the store where you're rapidly looking at information and data, moving product around the store, looking at demographics, they're right there on the camera, that you can really start to bring the speed and the quickness of what's going on in the digital world into the store. And it works the opposite way as well with clienteling, bringing the charm of the store into the digital world. But I am a believer, and it sounds trite because I'm a cautious believer, but an absolute believer. And what I mean by that, in AI. And I think it's broader than the sexy things we hear about, personalization every day and things like that. I think it's real. I think it's going to dwarf like the concept of cloud, was a concept a long time ago. But I think AI is here to stay. And I think the complex part is picking how and where it fits your business. I think two places being overlooked a little bit or not as maybe out front in the realm of the sexy AI is one is back to the example I gave, is what's happening inside of these platforms for the employees. That when I think about running an e-commerce site, you run a report, you say, hey, what sold? What was my gross margin on that? What was my this? Okay, I see that. Oh, I got too much inventory here. Let's go back and move these. Instead of really putting all this intelligence at the power inside the power of the platform to enable the end, just like you want stores to go faster, you need digital to go faster, because to me, speed is king. And then you have the back office, not back office, but in-house functions like planning and allocation, how much product to buy, where to deploy it, what you should be paying for it, what you should be charging for it, long before it even gets in front of the customer, let alone what should I be designing for the customer. In fashion, you get a lot of things that are starting to be more and more intelligent to help you design clothing and accessories and what type of beauty products are next. So I think there's going to be a lot of trial and error. And I think if you have a super nimble platform, you can try more things more frequently, getting back to what we said. But there's no question that if you're not spending 20% of your time as an executive thinking and analyzing and even testing and trying, AI-based things that can help move the business of the problems you're trying to solve, I think you're missing out here. I think this is going to be a wave that is rote within the next 5 or 10 years, or even 2 to 3 years in some cases.
One question that does come to mind, and it's like inertia, right? People, specifically with platforms such as their e-commerce, they're so scared to look at replatforming or moving away, and so therefore they know it sucks, but they sort of like, does it suck enough, right? Or is it less sucky this year than it was that year because everything's tied in a monolith central mainframe somewhere because it's too big to change? What do you say to those customers that come to you like, where they're like, what do you say?
I got to tell you, I've done a lot of replatforms, and usually I'm not the guy they bring in to maintain things. I'm the guy they bring in when a material transformation is needed. Every company I've been to, massive transformations have taken place, and I think it's thrilling. And I'm not pitching this. I have a 10-part blog series I did on replatforming from end to end we're going to put into an ebook here pretty soon. But I think it's thrilling. I think figuring out the problems you're trying to solve, figuring out the ecosystem and the platforms and the SIs, and then de-risking the implementation and having metrics and data as your sort of foundation. I think it's thrilling. And there's always risk. And every day you wake up, what's the biggest risk today? Knock that risk down. And then you got another bigger risk, knock that one down. I don't know, it's what our job is. I mean, we have to evolve, and we have to evolve quickly in this world. So to me, I there is a lot, because retail still has a lot of old school in it, a lot of people that are very brick and mortar focused to this day. And getting that digital first mentality it's a thrilling, it's a thrilling personal transformation for a human to go through. And I went through it long ago at Rosetta Stone, and got wrapped around the customer and the concept of digital. And I just think it's thrilling. So I try to help them, be able to be comfortable that you can de-risk this. There's art, but it's a science. You succeed or fail, based on the prep work you do up front, and then you execute like crazy, pivot when you need to, and you'll get there. I don't know. It's I do hear it an awful lot, though. There is trepidation, but I just get excited about the whole thing.
I mean, and that's good, because that's what people will want, when they're going through the process. I've seen it from both sides, and I think it's a double whammy. I'm coming back from China in terms of this post-digital world where everything has transformed. Everything is enabled or e-commerce enabled. I think retailers in Europe and in the US will get a double whammy of, their competitors can go faster and their physical stores are not engaging or entertaining, and they can't convert as much as they need to convert. And so then they're left in some of the horror stories that we hear in the news about retail. Jay, thank you so much. I want to be sensitive to the time that we agreed for the podcast. It's been an absolute blast. Are you guys doing any of the? I know you were NRF. Are you doing NRF this year as well? Or?
We are. We're doing NRF. We have some special things planned for NRF. We're doing Shop Talk Chicago.
We could have. I'll be at Shop Talk. We could have done it in person.
Yeah, that'd be great. Alex, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Jay.
Bye.